Yeah, yeah. We just chillin' and vibing. Good conversations with good people. Oh, good conversations with good people. Yeah,
Yo, 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 this your boy Larry, and I'm chilling and vibing with pro basketball player, Hall of Famer at George Washington, entrepreneur and leader, Chris Monroe. What's going on, man?
Good, brother. Just chilling. Glad to be on here.
Hey, man, I appreciate you for coming to chill and vibe, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Been meaning to get on here for a while, man. I like what you doing.
Appreciate you, man. Hey, we finally link up, man. Time be timing sometime.
Hey, listen, family, work, daddy duties. You know it is. But I'm glad to be here, man. Looking forward to digging into this stuff, man.
Appreciate you, man. So, Chris, man, where you from?
I'm a hybrid, man. I'm born. My mother was from Hyattsville, Maryland, and my father was from Uptown DC. So you know how they are. I'm from the DMV.
So, growing up in the DMV, man, how did the basketball journey start?
And just like any other neighborhood, that's what we did for the most part. We didn't really play soccer. We didn't play football. The main thing we did was the blacktop, and all the guys that we looked up to was playing on the course, and that's where we spent our time, and from there, that's where we spent all of our time from the rec centers outside on the blacktop hooping.
So, like, who did you look up to, back then?
Oh man. Once I really got into really found a love for the game, and one of the reasons I fell in love with the game was because at that time, I mean, it was hard pressed. Everybody was watching Michael Jordan on TV. That's when Michael was doing his thing. And so, who really got me into it, once I seen Michael and then I started seeing the older guys in the neighborhood and start seeing their successes, that really kind of catapulted me to be like, man, I want to be like, I can do it. I used to watch the games and try to imitate their moves at the court. As soon as the game's over, I'm running to the court trying to do their moves, spin moves, and stuff like that. So I couldn't dunk back then, but yeah, trying to imitate what I was seeing, and it was really the guys in the neighborhood that I started to see that had success. I came up, so I came up in DC where you had, you had the Herbal Coalition. I mean, the Herbal Coalition. You would have guys like Kurt Smith and a lot of the street ball legends and dudes that were playing for Maryland, and they would come back and these pros would be coming back, and then sometimes seeing them doing amazing things. And what was crazy about it was being able to see the guys in the neighborhood show these dudes, that you seen on TV and in college, it just that really what brought me into the game and really wanted to make my mark.
At what age you start dunking? I heard you say you didn't wasn't dunking back then.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
At what
supposed to.
age you start dunking?
I started playing early. I was a product of, back when when Boys and Girls Clubs really funded and they really put it into the communities, right? So I played it, back in the day. It's not like how it is now with the young kids starting AAU, first, second grade. Back then, all we had was boys clubs. And so the boys club is really where, I played a little bit of baseball, a little bit of basketball, seasonal. It was all season sports. Now everything's hyper focused. It's football all year long. It's basketball all year long. You know what I'm saying? It's track all year long. So it was more seasonal on these things. So I started dunking probably my eighth grade year. My eighth grade year was the first time I got. Now some people gonna argue it, right? Because some of these courts are not regulation outside and things of that nature. But I had my first dunk at 8 years old. Not 8 years
Man,
old. At eighth grade in my eighth grade year. Not yeah, eighth grade year.
boy, that's wow. So like eighth grade year, you dunking. Saying
hmm
you going to high school. What made you chose George Washington to go to college?
Well, really, um, you know, to take it back for a second, jumping through high school. High school, I had played AAU basketball, right? And so one of the guys that was influential and also helped me with my college process was my AAU coach at the time, Rob Jackson, and also Steve Turner, right? But Rob Jackson, Steve Turner coaches Gonzaga, is one of the top rated high school coaches now. After he came, he was born in the AAU scene. Rob Jackson was kind of the one that started up the Blue Devils. So he coached everybody from Ty Lawson to Kevin Durant here, right? And so one of the things that he was great on was seeing a kid's skill, seeing what he can do, and finding the right system for him, right? And so that's that leads me to um, why I chose George Washington University. So when I was coming out of school, I had schools like Maryland, West Virginia, Marquette, all the mid majors coming after me. And, some of these schools, like for example, I was told I would have to sit, probably my first 2 years, I wasn't gonna get a lot of playing. So I had to wait my time in the Gary Williams system. Uh, you know, Georgetown didn't have any scholarships at the time. They wanted me to go JUCO, and at the same time, I played with a different conference. I felt like, I always played up. I was always playing against um, guys that were, NBA all rookies. I had guys on my AU team that went, lottery draft picks. We had so much talent around here, that I was like, I'm not. Who's sitting in front of me? Who's standing in front of me? I believe I could be on the court at the same time still. Fast forward to my decision. So at the point in time, it really came down to coaches. And so, John Thompson is a legend here. Would have loved to play for him, but that didn't work out. And so I always wanted to stay local. And the reason I wanted to stay local was because, my father, he never really traveled. He didn't drive and he wasn't getting on a plane. So, and, my grandmother, she was older. She had just moved down from Boston instead of, so she wasn't really going to be able to travel and see me play, right? And so, my mother, she was my road dog. So my mom would travel everywhere. But, really then I also added in the fact that I wanted my neighborhood to see me, right? All the people that helped me get here, get to this spot today. Because in my neighborhood, I could have went a lot of different directions, but there was a lot of good men that, made sure, put money in my pocket when I needed it, or made sure that I got to practices when I needed to get to practice, right? And so that kept me, as a way to reward them, is to kind of give them the fruit of their labor, right? Come celebrate with me and my success, and y'all motivate me just like I motivate y'all to do right, and y'all motivate me to say, hey, you got an opportunity, don't blow it. And so coming down to the coaches, I remember the last year my AAU circuit, I was on fire. I had a couple mid-major offers, but all the major D1s came towards the end of my junior going into my senior year, which led into you know, which was after I had went down to what they call the Nike tournament down in the Walt Disney Worldwide of Sports. They had a tournament there for Nike, and I was in the Nike circuit. At that time, most Nike teams didn't play Adidas. Adidas didn't play Nike. You either went to ABCD camp for Adidas, or you end up going to the Nike camp, right? And so I was in the Nike circuit, and I remember going down to Florida. I had showed some people at Peach Jam in Georgia, was killing it. Left there, went down to Florida, and I think I was averaging something somewhere like I was averaging at one point like 32, 30 something points a game, right? On one of the best AAU teams in the circuit. So it brought a lot of eyes to me. But the issue with a lot of coaches was they didn't really see what position I played. I was a scorer. What I like to call I was a player. I mean, that means you can put me anywhere on the court. I'm gonna fit into your system. I'm gonna go get a bucket, right? But at that time, they wanted the 6'3", 6'2" point guards, and he had to be a point guard. He had to handle the ball this way. My gift was making plays but getting the ball in the basket. Other guys like Steve Blake and those guys were making plays for others and still could get in the bucket, right? So, a lot of coaches liked me, came after me after the game, said, we like your game, we like the way you play. We just don't see, like, we need to see you do this. We need to see you do that, because I was what they called a tweener, meaning that I didn't see the game well enough to be a point guard at that time, coming into college. At the same time, I wasn't tall enough to be considered a big, or I wasn't traditional kind of slot player. And so when that happened, a lot of the coaches were talking about, well, if you come here, we'll work on da 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 da. I felt like I said I can make an impact right away at any level, at any point, you know. And so it's the same thing that happened in high school. People thought that what I did in the AU circuit, it wouldn't be able to translate into the high school game. And at the high school game, along with a couple of my AAU other brothers, led Good Counsel High School to a position that they'd never been before nationally, which was a top 5 team in the USA today, right? Never done, and they haven't done it since. So 20 plus years, they've never been back, and they've had a lot of good players come out of Good Counsel since then, but they just haven't got to that level. So fast forward to college, people saying, well, he's not gonna be able to play that way at the college level. He's not gonna be able to do that. He's not gonna be able to dominate. And so, there was one guy that came. He came and he heard. Well, I met his assistant coach at down there in Florida. The next tournament that came up was in September, was a local tournament that was held at Maryland University, which was the Charlie Weber tournament. And in that tournament, I was killing again, kept the ball rolling, scoring, doing my thing. Championship game went against another lottery pick that was local, was Joe Forte. We ended up beating Joe Forte's team in the championship, which brought another eyes because he went to an AACC school. He's all this, he's ranked the top, what is he, top 10 player in the country. And I did my thing there, killed him. So then that's when a lot of schools, started coming, those, like, hey, we want to get that. And I was like, I'm good because I was Tom Penders, who had just came to George Washington University from Texas. He was coaching over there, came to GW. I was me and a good friend of mine, Sir Valiant Brown, was his first recruiting class. And so, we were both scorers. We knew how to put the ball in a bucket. Val wasn't your typical point guard. I wasn't your typical scorer, So when all those things planned out, that's how I ended up there. And Tom Penders came to me and said, "Hey, Chris, listen, I'm a guards coach. We're gonna give you ISOs. We're gonna if you can put the ball in the bucket, we're gonna give you the opportunity to do it. You just gotta do it. And if you can't, you can't. But we're gonna give you the opportunity. I'm gonna treat you as a man. I'm gonna hold you accountable as a man. So if you go out there and do what you're supposed to do, you're gonna come in and make an impact right away. And that's what happened. So I went to GW, and that's how it happened for me. Choosing GW over some of the other schools that I could have went to. It hit all my milestones, right? It was a local school. It played in the A10 conference, and people that just had came out the A10 conference were guys like Katino Mobley. You had Lamar Odom. You had all these guys that were making impacts in the NBA, which told me, hey, if I go here and do what I'm supposed to do, I can show the NBA folks that, look, y'all coming getting people out of our conference. If I'm one of the top guys in this conference, that means if guys in our conference are doing their thing, I can do it too. And so from that standpoint, I had a coach in Tom Penders who also had NBA players. He had the right system for me, right? I could have went a lot of places. I could have went to Maryland, which might not have been the right system for me, being in a flat set. I went to a place where there's more motion, more freedom for you to kind of read the game on the fly and use your natural instincts to be and to make an impact on the game. And that's why I chose Tom Penders. And like I said, the rest was history.
So I want to talk about your senior year, man. You had a stomach bug, but you
hmm
still walked out there and you still played, man. Like, talk me through that night.
You know, that night it was crazy, and there was a lot going on leading up to that night. Probably it was the last game we needed to win the game to get to the A10 tournament. The reason our team, in our conference struggled a bit was because we had a lot of young players at the time. Some guys that are now NBA guys, right? You got Pop Spencer Bonsu, who's now doing amazing things with NBA Africa. He went on to play in Toronto and places like that. You had Mike Hall, who ended up going to out of Chicago, that ended up going to the NBA and making an impact and that way. But they were freshmen when they came in, and I was a senior. Right, we had went through a coaching change because by the time I graduated, Tom Penders was no longer the head coach. There was a coach by the name of Carl Hobbs. And me and it's all public knowledge that me and Coach Hobbs did not see eye to eye when it came to how he viewed me as a player. When they came in, and my perspective on it was they didn't believe in who I was, even though my numbers were my numbers. They thought that they knew talent, and they thought that they could, we went. They thought they knew talent, and they thought that I wasn't that guy for it, even though I had been carried the load. So one of the coaches now, who's the head coach over there at Morgan State, was Kevin Brodus, and he's really the reason why I stayed at GW. I had the opportunity to go to and leave and go to Notre Dame with Coach Bray at the time. I got the invite to come out there, but like I said, I wanted to stay local and be around my family. And so leading up to the game, I was informed by our SID that I don't know, leading up to that game, I don't know, 100 points away from being GW's all-time leading scorer. And I like to tell people, like, that was not a goal of mine. I didn't, look up. I was told literally my senior year, like, you're 100 points away from making history, right? Here at GW. And so, there was a lot of stuff that came with it. And, for the last 2 years, me and Coach Hobbs never saw eye to eye, to the point where, he was telling me, oh, I'm going to recruit over you. I'm going to bring somebody in. You ain't going to be able to do this. You ain't going to be able to do that. These kind of conversations are what we were having. And instead of, but one thing I loved about my teammates, Mike's the TJ Thompson, who's now, up at Rutgers doing great thing with Coach Peichel, you know, they're doing amazing things up there, and I had amazing guys around me because I wouldn't be able to do what I did or even reach that goal if my teammates didn't believe in me, right? So from that standpoint, leading up to that game, there was a lot of things. Will he break the scoring record? Will he do this and that? And I remember, if I didn't play that game, we wouldn't go to the A10 tournament, and that means if I didn't play that game, also that score record wouldn't have been broken, right? Because we more than likely would have lost to UMass at that time. So, I looked at it, was like, listen, one, I'm always an optimist, so I felt like, listen, we have an opportunity here to make history, right? I still had hopes that I had talent, I had young talent all around me, and they were hungry, and I was hungry to get to the NCAA tournament because I was close, but I missed it, and things fell apart, and I was in a rebuilding part of GW's history at that point in time, right? Leading up to that game, I was sick. I wasn't feeling. I didn't go to shoot around. I didn't, I was out of it, and I was just like, look, I'm gonna go out here and give it my best, And once again, I went into that game not to break the record. I went into the game to because I wanted to see the big stage because I knew that if I got to the big stage, based off my history and well, it doesn't matter if it was Texas, UConn, doesn't matter what Power Five school it was. I got busy on them, right? And I thought that if there was a shot, I want to get that shot to win, to play on the big stage and show the rest of the world when all other basketball has shut down, the rest of the world that who is this kid, Chris Monroe. And so it didn't work out. We lost in the first round to Xavier, who had David West, and of course he's an NBA, well-known NBA player at the power forward position, along with Mario Chalmers and a couple other guys that Xavier had that was ranked in the top 25 that year. So we lost to a good team, and I'm not mad about it. But leading up to that game, my only thought was, man, anything's possible on any given Sunday, one and done. And so I fought through that. I fought through that game, and then got to the tournament. We took that loss to Xavier, but that's what motivated me was the opportunity, the one chance. The only thing that eluded me at my college career was getting to that NCAA tournament.
Oh, being the leading scorer all time, that puts you in the Hall of Fame at George Washington, man. How does that
Hmm
feel? Being the Hall of
I
Fame?
mean, yeah, I mean, it feels good. It's one of those things now that I got boys, I got kids. When I go up there, they can say, you know, the record that I broke was, I want to say 50 years, right? And I'm sure, I mean, I'm sure somebody will come along and break it now with guys coming into college older and staying longer and things of this nature. But it felt good to be recognized as one of the best players in GW's history. The chance to, for when my son, if I'm no longer here and he has kids, he'd be like, your dad went here and look, here's what your dad was able to accomplish and leave behind, and my name still, has names and gives them to something to aspire to. That something that they can always be proud of when I have grandkids or when my kids, my sons can always go to a place and be, my dad made his name here, he made his bones here, and he left a legacy that that is respected by the GW community and the institution as a whole. So that's why that the Hall of Fame is what really it felt great, along with going into the Atlantic 10, the conference. Legends. And my conference legends, I went in with the guys that I have the utmost respect for that came before me, and the reason why the A10 was so appealing. You had Marcus Camby. I went in. That's my one of the legends that went in with. We went in the same class. You had Catino Mobley. That was another legend that went in there. So these are the guys that I could say, hey, I'm part of that class. You know what I mean? So it feels great to be honored with some of the best that have ever done it in their respective, from wherever they came from to the teams that they played on. They've had impact, and it's good to be recognized as one of those guys. That's and there, and to think about it too, being in the Hall of Fame and being the all-time leading scorer. I don't know what it is now, but it feels good that out of everybody that played Division One basketball, that I'm one of 400 student athletes that has crossed the 2,000 threshold, of points. You got guys like a good brother of mine, Walton Dixon, has done it. A couple other my guys have done it. But to be in that company with these men, you can say that at the end of the day, I'm in good company, right? I put in my time, I practice, I put in my work, and here's the results of what I've done. That not only I represented my last name well. I represented my institution well. But I also now have something that my kids can be proud of as well. It's like my dad accomplished this, and so more things, more and more history to be made. But these are the things that make me smile, and when I think about what I've done in the basketball in the world of basketball.
Does it feel, having sons that love playing the game that you love playing also growing up and watching them develop?
You know, it's hard at times. Because it's kind of. I was talking to one of my coaches. I was talking to Rob, and as we were, he had a tournament Rob Jackson. We had a tournament this weekend, and I'm just watching my son, and I'm like, sometimes I'm looking like I've been trying to tell him, but my coach reminded me. He's like, Chris, you got to remember, you're reading the game from such a high level. You know what I mean? And you're expecting your kids to get kind of got them, and I'm like, you're right. And I don't get, I love the journey my son is on, and what I mean by journey is he's falling in love with the game, and he's playing the game for the right reasons. I try to keep all the highlights and the Instagram stuff, and all the stuff that these kids are really playing for, and tell them, what basketball is like a metaphor for life. You get in what you put in. You know what I mean? It takes a team. You got to understand your personnel. You got to understand who's around you. You know what I mean? You got to understand your competition. You got to scout your competition. That means you got to do your research, right? So you got to also create your own lane. You can't be Stephen Curry 2.0. You got to have something that's a little different that makes you unique. Your last name's not Curry. Your last name's Monroe, right? So find your game. Your hands are not the same size. Your arms are not the same length. You're not the same person. So you need to create your own identity. And I'm loving watching him come into own, um, see play the game the way he's playing the game and find out what he does well, what he doesn't do well, and watching him work towards getting better in a craft that he likes. And he's a multi-sport kid. So, my oldest, he's 9, and he's in the third grade, and he's a multi-sport kid. So I also want to let him know, give him experience of other sports too. I don't want to hyper focus him in on one game, but it's a joy for me to see him. And now my youngest Cruz is, he's about to turn 4, and he wants all of it. He wants basketball, football. He don't care what it is. Wrestling. He just loves being, and I just let any so kind of let them be kids and find out who they are. So it's as a dad, I smile and I look at him and I see them put the effort in, and I'm just like, and to be honest, he's better than me at this age than I was, right? Because he's gotten trainers, and what I mean, he's doing things. He's using his left hand for sure better than me at this age, right? So
Oh man,
I say,
that's what's up.
so I was like, hey, you doing that? You're ahead of the game already, right? Um, so I think, yeah, I think for me, it's being a dad and watching him come along is just a blessing. It's a joy, and I'm glad I'm here to see it.
That's what's up, man. You also played pro basketball overseas. How was that
Yeah.
journey?
Oh, it was different, right? Just imagine you never left the U.S. You're chasing a bag, and you're going into different cultures that you really don't know. They speak a different language. They live a different way. They move on a different time zone. All these things. So it was an experience. But I had a great agent, Dan Tobin, who kind of walked me through the process. And one of the things, he really emphasized was assimilating yourself into the culture that you're going to. Right. Learn as much as you can. Try to speak the language. Don't necessarily, you ain't gotta, I see a lot of kids who don't make it overseas, um try to bring them to Italy, and yes, you bring yourself, but you also can't shun their culture. You gotta enjoy what they have and learn what makes their culture special. And from there, I had a personal great experience overseas by and the friends I still have to this day, because they taught me a lot about life and culture and the way they view life, right? And how I've taken those experiences back with me to stateside, and as I raise my boys. But I have no complaints about my time overseas, because basically I got paid to travel the world for free and live in cultures and get these experiences you know that most people haven't, right? So I just think that, and I'm seeing the world, and I also got a chance to give my mom a stamp in her passport everywhere I went, except for places like Iran. And I don't know, my mother came to Russia. She didn't want to come to Russia. Well, she She might have come rushing, but yeah, and and I did, for a quick second, get an opportunity to do the summer league camps and with the Wiz, so with the Wizards and things. So I didn't get an official NBA jersey to be able to put it on and hang it up on my wall and say this was me. I wish I did, but from that standpoint, as a pro man, I think I don't play basketball really to this day, except for shooting around with my sons, because I felt like I did everything that I wanted to do from this from the professional standpoint. I don't I miss the game. I love watching the game, but I don't feel the need that I did everything I needed to do. If that makes sense.
I saw you made a highlight, man, over there when y'all played against Rome and you dunk on Buddy. Oh,
Listen, listen. That buddy, his name is Jermaine Jones, right? So he probably gonna come in hot and heavy, right? And a quick story about him. Of course, Jermaine Jones is known for guarding Kobe, at guarding AI, and he played with AI and guys like that, and he's a great dude. And I remember when he came overseas, he started his overseas journey. The first place he stopped, we were in Italy, and it was Naples. And he's coming over there, and man, he came in, and first thing Jay started doing is talking trash in practice, right? So we hit it off right away. We just started talking trash back and forth to the point where we started making practice fun, where people were trying to dunk on people in the drills and stuff like that. So nobody ever dunked on anybody, right? I would talk trash, and he would talk trash to me, and he was like a big brother, and we would just kind of go back and forth. And then the following year, we ended up on different teams. We're in the playoffs, and this is like the first, second like play of the game. And all I remember is I drove from the left side to the right side down the middle. I came down and Jermaine got there kind of late and then tried to take a charge. And I remember when I took the step off, I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh, I'm here. And then I dunked on him and then he slid. And then, after that, like the amount of trash talking that we had for that one was just unseen. So listen, I will. Like I'm gonna connect you with him so that you can get him on your podcast so you can ask him about this. But yes, that was one of the most. That was probably the most the funnest. I've dunked on other people, but that's one of the most. That was the most fun that I had with dunking on that because it was a build up to that one, and then he kept trying to get me back, but I wouldn't go down there to give him the opportunity to dunk on me.
oh no.
I was looking over my shoulder, and I mean, me and him went at it for years. I'm talking about I dunked on him. Then he comes over to I was playing for Milan at the time, and then he comes back, he hits a game winner. His whole team celebrating, but he's staring at me because I wasn't in the game time. So he's staring at me on the bench. It's just the banter for my brother. I love it. So he got me back, I got him, but he ain't never dunk on me though. I'm gonna just say that. He ain't never dunk on me. He ain't never
Oh
dunk
yeah,
on me.
he didn't want to get that to get back, man.
Yeah. But he still to this day, if he can dunk, he would try to sneak me just so he could have it, but it ain't happen.
I want to say congrats, man. I see you the director athletic of development at Howard University.
Hmm.
How does it feel
Yeah.
having that position?
I mean, well, that position it was a new position for Howard. Howard had never had a director of development for athletics, so it's kind of like you're in a startup, right? You're learning the coaches and you're learning the systems there, but it feels good. One of the things is Howard is a iconic brand, right? And they have so much potential, not just from corporate, from individuals, and being able to help AD Carey Davis with bringing and resources to the student athletes to help out the HBCU, a flagship HBCU. There was no way that I would want to turn that opportunity down when the opportunity presented itself. My mom, for a long time, worked at Howard Hospital, and I know a bunch of friends and people that go there, and I know what happens with the HBCUs and things of that nature. So I wanted to kind of bring my expertise that I learned, from being over in GW's athletic department and being a direct, being in the development shop over there, and wanted to come there and be able to, especially as a startup, help Howard have everything in place to be able to scale, because I think Howard is one of the few HBCUs that is very special, and I'm happy to be there to this day.
Man, how is it watching, the young athletes become young men, man?
It's a journey, it's a process, right? And I was talking to through Howard, sitting down with some of the black elites and those that are running corporation C-suite individuals. Man, they love hiring athletes. And and the reason why they talk about it all the time is because the athletes understand what the grind of what it takes to, you got to go study, but then you got to get up and you still got to perform. And not only perform under pressures and the constraints with timelines, and understand that you're being judged by your performance, by what you do. You're only as good as your last game, kind of thing. You got a couple wins, but you got to continue doing that, right? And you're representing, whether it's the company or the athletic department or the brand or the university, you're representing somebody. So you know how to, if you've been able to be successful as a student athlete, that means you're a representation. You know how to carry yourself to represent that brand. We can trust you to be an ambassador. We can trust you to put you in other front of people to develop business. And you understand what it takes to be successful, right? Whether you are in individual sports like swimming and diving, right? Where you're being judged by your time. Your time is your time, and there's no excuse about it, right? Or you're playing a team sport where when you're playing team sports, you got to know how to play well with different departments or different areas to make the thing work as a goal. So whether I'm a point guard, say that's like a director, and I have my guy over here that does sales, my guy that does marketing, I got my operations guy. I got all these guys that need to be able to communicate and be able to move as one leadership, right? So your role, sports and life comes together seamlessly. And I think that watching these kids develop from freshman to senior year, if now it's a little bit different, right? Because a lot of them jump to school, so you don't really get to follow them through. But those that I see on a regular basis, and I hear their stories, and I see their grind, and seeing them from when they came into being adults, and those when I was at GW, seeing them now to helping them get jobs and being references for them, seeing them as becoming to young men and women, it's a blessing. It helped me actually, with the patience and kind of how I translate to my son, like watching him progress through this time frame. So
You're
yeah,
also a businessman. Let's talk about it, man.
yes,
So
sir.
what made you want to get into real estate?
I was always when I was overseas, I read biographies, and I always liked the game of Monopoly. Monopoly was for me what me and my mom and dad when we sat down and we played Monopoly. I liked money, right? And then where I saw it was through real estate. And so when I started getting my contracts, I would come home, and my mom had a entrepreneurial bug. She liked real estate too. And back then they always said, you got to buy, if you have a home, it's the biggest investment. If buying a home is a big investment, why not have two or three? And then you start learning the rental game, and then you kind of build your business out from there. So I buy a couple properties. I started understanding management, handling tenants. Then it goes from like, oh, now you start getting the financial aspect of it, of how to leverage, equity in your home, or start understanding the numbers and the business of it, what write-offs are, LLCs, and you start kind of putting the pieces together as you go. Everybody hits some up and down, so it wasn't always a smooth path, right? You understand that that was a bad deal, but you were able to work your way out of it and restructure that deal to make it work for you. But I think, my passion for entrepreneurship really came, and real estate really came from the game of Monopoly, and me wanting to see how, oh, let me get these couple homes, let me package this portfolio together, let me sell this. It's no different than when I bought my first town home, then I went and bought a couple condos, bought a single family home. Then it was like, okay, I found myself when I was coming home trying to manage these properties, or my mom, when I was overseas, she would have to go all these different places. Then I start hearing about this word doors, right? So then with doors, it's like, oh, why don't, they got multifamily. Oh, so instead of me jumping to all these single homes, I could have all these people in one building, one location, and collect the money from there.
Hmm.
Okay, then you start understanding valuation. So now you have multifamily, like, dag, like, okay, multifamily, and as somebody that owns a property management company, you look at it from like, dang, like you dealing with these tenants all the time. Like, is there another way? Then you meet through, through friends and through networking, you meet other people that are doing other aspects of real estate and kind of bring you in. And one of the opportunity was, a good buddy of mine, Sam Pan, introduced me to a good buddy of mine now, Jay Cluck, where now, I fell more in love with commercial real estate, and commercial being from shopping centers, right? Because if I could have a 17 building with 17 tenants, but instead I could have a shopping center with 17 like businesses, whether it be Aldi's, Taco Bell, Chase Bank, Walgreens, Seven. If I have those, they have bigger pockets. I don't have to deal with changing toilets or hearing all the calls because it's a triple net lease. And I
Yeah.
sit back and everything's built out. They're 30-year, 25, 20, 25, 30-year leases with escalation clause. So it's not like I got to find a tenant, you know, we go back and forth about the price of, the rent, or this condo next door is having this, special. They'll pay for your first 2 months, or they'll give you access and they have better amenities. I ain't got to deal with that. We're here. We know there's going to be a 3 to 5% escalation in the rent every 5 years or so, and it's easy to plan out. And all you have to do is manage the property, which is when you talk about triple net lease. I don't got to worry about nothing interior. Make sure the parking lot's where it needs to be, the structures where it needs to be, and the roof is good. Everything else moves by itself. And for that, it's less headache, it's bigger dollars, and more opportunity there, right? And so that's where I kind of am right now in this space where I still do the resi and I still do multifamily, but from a standpoint of where I see the value, and understand it was like nah, commercial with. So that's why I
Commercial.
fell in love with real estate. Yeah, commercial real estate.
How does it feel, man, having friends like Steph Curry, Dennis Rodman, AJ Calloway, Anthony Anderson? I can go on, but I'm gonna
Mm,
stop right there, man.
yeah. When you meet people and people recognize who you are and you recognize who they are, right? So it's kind of like um, I wouldn't necessarily call them like friends where I'm just calling them up on the phone, right? But there are people that I know them, they know me, and it's as acquaintances. But to have these people, and it's through networking, right? So a lot of these people that I've met were met through buddies of mine in a circle who have real relationships with them, right? And so just to be able to be in that space and hear their story, hear their journeys, and being around in special events and things of that nature is really cool, right? You get star power, but really to understand how these guys are successful, right? And what do they do? What do they what how they act behind the scenes, right? And Steph is exactly who you think he is behind the scene. Anthony is exactly who you think he is behind the scenes, right? And just understanding how they move, you come to respect what they do and their personalities. And I think it's good to be able to know these people, but it's better to kind of watch how they move and learn things from them. And I'm always learning stuff from my friends, whether they're celebrities or not, or acquaintances. I'm trying to take something from the way you do something that had led to your success that'll allow me to do the same. Because a lot of times it's you really want to take bits and pieces from people and kind of craft your own and learn. So I'm one of those continue education kind of guys.
And me too, man. And I always tell everybody, man, networking is the key. Working like when I start my podcast, at first I used to be kind of nervous, I was like, oh man, they ain't coming on. But then, them
Hmm.
no's got me even hungrier. Like, okay, well, I'm gonna ask this. And then when I got that yes, I got another yes. Sure. When we gonna do this? I'm like, okay, I'm in there now. So like even if I do get a no now, it's like it going one end, not the other. I don't even hear it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I tell people, I think one of the things is that all kids need to learn is be put in sales, right? Don't be afraid to go ask for what you want and learn it. I think that also you're in a perfect space with this podcast and how podcast has exploded, where you got a lot of successful people, or people have stories to tell, right? And sometimes they don't have outlets to really tell the story. And if you can provide that outlet, you learn a lot from sitting down with people and be like, so how did you do this? Like we heard about this, but when you were in this position, how do people like telling their stories, leaving their mark? Because a lot of times, a lot of amazing stories go to the grave with people, and we missed a lot of history because, a lot of people are not able to tell their stories. And I commend you for, taking stories here so you have an archive. And when people say, "Man, I heard about this guy, Chris," well, oh, he's on, chilling and vibe. He here and he did a podcast, and you can learn a little bit from him here, especially with those industry experts, right? How they did what they did in their mind frame and how they approached the problem. A lot of people be like, I would never approach the problem like that, but that's interesting that he's doing it. Let me take notes, right? And I think that people sharing love and spreading and knowledge is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, man. Like I tell everybody, they say, what about your podcast? Like what you get out of it? I say, man, everybody got a story. Everybody. And I done heard some stories on camera and off camera, man. I was like, wow. But everybody got a story, man. It's gonna motivate somebody, encourage them, or inspire them to want to do better in life, man.
Yeah, 100%,
Like, your
100%.
story, well, one of your stories that you told, playing you were sick. your senior night or senior year,
Hmm.
somebody watching this podcast can be like, man, if he can do it, I can do it. I'm gonna go out there and play too.
Yep. Yep. And I think a lot of times it's really what's your goal? You dig down when you get down like that or a bug, like what's your why? You know what I mean? Jordan had a why. My reason was because I was trying to get someplace I ain't never been before, and I wouldn't have another shot to do it. Right? Had another year, maybe I would just be like, I'm good. Like I can't do it. But nah, like I commend the GW staff for making sure they did the right things, hydrate, and give me the opportunity to play. Because sometimes some coaches and or staff could be like, he just we don't want to risk him getting out there and doing this, right? But everybody understood that my passion for winning, my passion for getting someplace that I wanted out. If I'm gonna go down, I'm gonna go down fighting, and that's the way I wanted to be known.
But the playoffs going on right now, man. How you feel about
Hmm.
Golden State? You think the boys gonna take it?
I think a real conversation needs to be had about, you know, well, my everybody knows where I stand. I think Jordan is the greatest of all time, right? There's a argue if Steph is able to get his fifth ring during a LeBron era, real questions need to be asked about who was really,
The greatest.
like that guy, right?
Yeah.
So, I think, and Steph has done it too. Steph did it with Clay, with Durant, and now he's in his post. So he's done. So I'm excited to see his journey. But the one journey I'm really keeping my eye on is Anthony Edwards. I love the way that kid's mental is. I love his passion for the game and his hunger. The fact that I see him guarding LeBron. Like I want all of it. Even back, even I fell in love with the young brother when I saw the way he wanted to guard Kyrie. Right? Like, listen, I want him. Yeah, Kyrie taught him a little something, but I want him. And the fact that he reminds me of how I came up, and the guys like, this is your guy. This is the king of the court. Oh no, lock up. Let's go. Let's go. We'll see. You got to show me, and that's that kind of guy. You got to show me who you are. I'm not listening to what people say. Man, he like nah. You got to show me. You got to. You just got to. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm looking for the playoffs is watching his journey, and of course to see if Steph can get his fifth ring.
Well, you know what Unc say, aka Shannon Sharp. Shout out to Shannon Sharp and Unc and got an Ocho. Unc say Lakers in
Hmm.
five. Lakers in five.
You seen the remix? He gonna be eating that.
Yeah, man.
You seen the remix? Oh man, like he I know he a LeBron guy, but I got shot. He just he a football guy. I think you know the viewpoint different. Like
Yeah.
the goat, the goat's Jordan, and I mean, what can I say?
Being a leader, what advice would you give a young adult that's about to enter the real world?
Keep an open mind. Um, being formless, meaning that don't be so rigid in your ways that you can't assimilate to a different, like a corporate culture, right? You can't always come in and be like, this is how we did this here, right? You got to be like, I'm here now. I'm bringing my skill set, and let's figure out a way. So always being a problem solver. So being a leader is being a problem solver, recognizing talent in other people to help you achieve your goal, understanding that, understanding people's mental, right? Understanding how they work. Not everybody works the same outside, and also as a leader being able to know when to press forward and when to pull back. I think that the better you understand people, the better you're able to achieve your goals, because there's no one that ever got anywhere by themselves, right? They always had somebody, and they were able to build their team around them, whether it was somebody that was in the air, being able to, as a leader, tell them, hey, you should look at it from this angle, right? Do this. You always had somebody that was giving you a different viewpoint that you respected, to kind of help. So as a leader, find a mentor. To this day, I still have mentors. One of my best and biggest mentors is Paxton Baker, who's one of the minority owners of the Nats, and he took me on his wing years ago. And I've always been following this league, and I take his counsel. And when I have things that I need to discuss with him, and how I solve this, and what do you think about this, he's always there to bend a leading ear. So you always, as a leader, know that you're not always the biggest and brightest and smartest in the room, right? But you have a vision, and with that vision, you sometimes you need to sit back and talk to other people that have been places that you haven't been yet, to help you navigate those mind crafts that they already walked, right? So that's why I say when a kid comes to me and say, what I do about overseas, what I do about this, kind of say, listen, just have these ducks in a row and try to have these spaces. 'Cause here's where I fell. I trusted, but I didn't verify, right? So these are the kind of things that I think that as a leader, you got to understand from a standpoint of I'm not always going to be the smartest, and I don't want to be the smartest in the room, right? I want to be able to understand people and what motivates them, and then the key here is to always, treat people with respect and push people. But the key thing for me is really knowing your personnel and broadening your network. Your network is your net worth, as I always say. I say it
That's
again, your
true.
network is your net worth. Yeah, the more people you know, the more people that know your name and respect your name, and can take you a long way. They open doors for you that in rooms that you have no business being in, and that's why I've been able to be a part of, like the Spirit, the women's soccer league. I was able to get a part of their, be a part of their 2021 championship, and I got my Washington Spirit. So as an owner, I can say not only did I, I've done these great things, but as a owner of a sports franchise, a part of an owner of being part of a group of owners of a sports franchise, I was able to win a championship. I don't know too many people that can say that they want to ring. There's owners to this day that haven't won any championships, and they the major owners. So I'm just like, my network allowed that to happen, and I'm forever thankful to my friends who saw value in me and the value I could add to the team to be a part of that. And I think that everybody wins in that way.
Well, Chris, I appreciate you for coming to Chill and Vibe, man. I know you got to get back to business, but before we go,
Yes,
let
sir.
everybody know what we doing, man.
You already know what we doing. We chilling and vibing. Pleasure to be here.
Appreciate you, man.
Anytime, bro.